All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Submission Radio Live. I'm Dennis Shkaradov. It's great to be here. Welcome to Submission Radio. Look, I just want to start this episode off by saying, look, let's make no mistake about it. I fully understand that this is perhaps the most pivotal, the most important episode of Submission Radio morning after the Jon Jones endgame saga suddenly hits, and at a click of the fate's cruel fingers, not only does the arguably best fighter ever do it retire, but with new criminal charges in the books, it could mean a lot more for Jones than just fans side-eyeing him at the local Albuquerque Cafe and Grill. So who did I get for this episode? Well, this next man stands firmly between the line of chaos and justice in our sport. His legal background makes him hands down the perfect participant in this high-stakes game of reactions. His prediction that this fight would never happen, that this fight never comes to play, that we never see it, it makes him mystic. But grab your bats, because Jed Meshew is about to begin his Jon Jones career finalizing argument here. And he's hungover.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back, D. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this in the past 24 hours, and I'm pretty sure John knew that I was at a lake weekend with the boys, that I wouldn't, and timed his retirement as such. He's like, I got to wait until Jed's not in the MMA game because he will come in and eviscerate me. But you didn't win this time either, Johnny. I'm here. Let's rock.
The other man joining us here today has been around some of the biggest characters in combat sports, from Bellator to UFC to WWE, people like Vince McMahon, for example, and many more. So where does Jon Jones rank amongst the worst of the worst? This man's soft, calm voice makes us feel that everything will eventually be all right. But will it? Will it, Jimmy Smith?
I mean, the world will keep on turning. The sport will go on without Jon Jones. But, this is a guy with a complicated legacy, man. Complicated legacy that we're definitely going to dive into. But it will, we'll all keep going. The heavyweight division's in trouble because that division right now is absolute flaming garbage. And they're going to have to move on without Jon Jones. By the way, the only American champion in the UFC right now is gone.
Wow. Well, there you go. There's a lot happening.
That's true. Jesus.
Yeah.
Let's get.
Yeah. Look at him. Check them all out.
Yeah, I did. Didn't realize that.
Last American champion. Yep.
And to go out like that. Let's talk about it real quick. Let's get started here, fellas, because there's a lot to get through. And by the way, throw in your questions and comments in the chat. Super chats get pushed to the front. And if you do get an opportunity, please sign up and join up to be a Submission Radio member. I'll be doing shout outs later in the show for the members on the chat here as well. Want to get this out of the way quickly because there's a lot to talk about. 15% off at Manscaped. Maybe smooth balls would have made for smoother getaways for Jon Jones. Maybe Manscaped would have helped him. Manscaped.com /submission, 15% off, and 15% off for Saley. Wherever you travel around the world, use Saley, the best eSIM in the game. That's 15% off to new signups. Use the code word submission, Saley.com /submission, 15% off. Now, for those tuning in right now, there's a lot of talk about.
We have to clarify. Jimmy is incorrect. Kayla Harrison.
Yes, the last male American champion. Yes.
There we go.
Very true. Kayla Harrison, very true.
I'll tell you what, you'll take Kayla Harrison right now as the American champion over Jon Jones.
I would, yes.
Who, by the way, is dealing with a lot right now. For those just tuning into the story right now, he is now dealing with a new criminal charge that freshly just came out. For people who don't realize it, there's been a number of criminal charges throughout Jon Jones' career. There's been 5 arrests to date, plus a 6th criminal charge that just came out just yesterday. This came out shortly after the retirement was made. A big statement was made. Dana White randomly just dropped it in Baku. I want to go to you first, Jed. What was your reaction about how this whole thing was handled and these two things just happening to come out back to back like this?
Dude, the two things coming out back to back is just, it was the most Jon Jones day possible. Like, completely dominated the headlines of a weekend where he didn't need to, right? Like, he's not involved. He wasn't fighting. But as soon as the retirement, of course, that would be the thing. And then, oh, by the way, another driving incident with him. Want to be a little cagey about what we say with regard to that one because, like, still sort of learning stuff about it. Nothing is super clear cut. but like the details seem pretty bad for the latest Jon Jones crime, I guess, right? And then the whole, like, I've been saying this for 18 months. He was never going to fight. I'm glad it finally happened, but the sort of circumstances of like, oh, we've been wanting Dana to address this forever. And he randomly does it at Baku, just sort of as a, oh, by the way, in the middle of this press conference, John's retired. Nobody fucking follows up with him. Nobody's like, hey, I have some more questions. Who's next for Tom? They're like, all right, cool. Can we talk about Khalil Roundtree? Fuck is happening? This is the biggest story of the summer, and we didn't get anything other than like, oh yeah, Tom's it now. See you guys at IFW. Like it was a super weird day yesterday, but my biggest takeaway is great. We needed to do this months ago, if not a year ago, and we can finally move on and not be controlled by Jon Jones and his timeline.
There's a lot to unpack here. Jimmy, before I go to you, just a quick reminder for people at home. And by the way, this is alleged, this latest criminal charge, so we won't get too much into it like Jed said, but just to remind people at home what we've been dealing with: 2012 DUI hit and run for Jon Jones, 2015 felony hit and run for Jon Jones, 2016 probation violation in Albuquerque, 2019 battery charge in Albuquerque in the strip club. That's the one where he slapped and choked the cocktail waitress, the aggravated DUI in Albuquerque 2020, 2021, domestic violence and battery charge. And then who can forget the most recent one, 2024, assaulting and threatening the drug tester in Albuquerque. And now this alleged one that's apparently happened, that we're all discussing, that happened. This is some of the details that got pulled from the report. Apparently there was a woman saying that basically Jon Jones, surprise, surprise, and allegedly left the scene of an accident after another driving incident. But Jimmy, like when you go through this thing, it's like it blows your mind, right? Like this has got to be one of the crazier, journeys for a combat sports athlete that we've seen, like just again. But it's always like there's always common themes in it, isn't it? Like there's always very similar themes in a lot of these.
He makes really bad decisions. He will continue to make really bad decisions until someone gets killed or he's legally incapable of doing it, because those are the only things that are going to turn his life around. When you say, man, look at all this stunning stuff in combat sports, Carlos Monzon is widely considered the greatest middleweight in boxing history. He murdered his girlfriend, threw her off a balcony. Right? We got War Machine in prison for the rest of his life. Right? I mean, there are people out there doing horrible things in combat sports. They just aren't usually as big as Jon Jones. And so that's the thing, is that, when you look at the history of the UFC, we've had some horrible people do horrible things that I won't even get into. It's the idea that Jon Jones consistently makes dumb decisions in this infantile, juvenile way, all right, there were, allegedly there's a half-naked woman in the car and he crashes it and runs off. The rule of thumb for me is you're making stupid decisions in your early 30s, you're going to make them the rest of your life. Right? It's always like, I was a dumbass, and I was in my 20s. And if you are where he is in life, as far as age and career and financially, and you're doing dumb things, you will continue to do dumb things until you are incapable of doing dumb things, either because you're in jail or you do something so horrible it turns you around. When you look at all of the charges we've seen, how many led to jail time? He makes bail, he gets out, he pleads down, and wash, rinse, repeat, right? He has enough money to pay enough lawyers that unless it's something horrible, and in this case, once again, he fled the scene of an accident, no one's dead underneath his tires, he'll probably plea down, and the same thing will happen again at some point. It'll happen until he makes a mistake that's so bad it costs him something, because none of those charges you just listed really cost him anything, right? Now, the one thing that isn't going to happen anymore, the way out for Jon Jones has always been the octagon. Right? I can basically shift the narrative away from my stupid decisions by fighting and beating somebody up. I've always been able to bounce back with my performances in the octagon. If he's really retired, and I don't believe that for a second that he's really retired, he won't have that ability to shift the narrative back to his performances in the octagon, which has always been his sanctuary. If that sanctuary is gone, it's a different story.
It's a great point made by you, Jimmy. I mean, Jed, from your perspective, obviously you got a law background. For people that don't understand this latest criminal charge that's happened to Jon Jones, Is this going to be anything really out of the ordinary? Like, he's not going to look at any real jail time, most likely. This is going to be another slap on the wrist, right? Might be just another one of those dot points that I listed from previous times.
It depends, honestly. The most likely answer is yes. Again, I don't have nearly enough facts to like super opine on this, but this is sentence 8. You know, like we've done this so many times that there's a world he catches the wrong judge is like, dude, you're here every 2 years with some new complaint. You shot a guy, you threatened to kill him at your apartment or whatever. This is your second hit and run case. Like, at some point in time, someone may simply look at this and be like, dude, you're going to do a 30 because you're not getting the message. You're not. And again, allegedly, because we cannot say at all whether he actually did this or whatever, but like, it seems that there's some level of a likelihood that Jon keeps not Ubering when he should. And so if you keep doing it, eventually you may catch something, but it's kind of how the legal system works in America. He's rich and has money. You know, he's famous, probably won't face consequences until something goes really, really bad. And God hope that doesn't happen. But like, that feels like the path we're down as just another, like, go Wikipedia Jon Jones. The controversy section is like 6 pages long. It is so big. And that's not an accident. Like, these things don't happen to him. They happen because he does them.
Guys, and once again, this is the 8th time. How many times has he done it? 100. He's been caught 8 effing times. And if you have any legal background, you know that you have clients that go, yeah, it's my 7th time doing this. I finally got caught. Well, do the math where if you're caught 8 times doing something stupid, that means you do stupid things probably every weekend and you're caught this often. That's another way to look at it, which is how I see it.
No, that's super legitimate. I legitimately do not speed in my car anymore because I got pulled over twice. And I was like, man, it really sucks to pay a $200 speeding ticket. I'll just not go 90 in a fucking 55. Like, Jon has been arrested like 6 times or something. And apparently that is not doing anything. Like, it's just how this works, man.
Yeah.
By the way, we got a question here for you, Jed. How many did you throw back? What are we thinking? Over, under 15?
What is... Oh, buddy, that is the.
I'd say over.
I mean, one, when you're setting an over/under, you need to do it as a half line, because like if I threw back 15 exactly, we're just a push and that's useless. But 2, clearly over. I was off all day. I woke up at 8 and hit the golf course, and then spent the rest of the day on the boat. It was a lot.
Love it. Let's get back.
Less than 25, over 15 for sure.
Love it. Let's go back to Jon Jones' legacy. Jimmy, in the movie of Ideas of March, one of my favorites, Ryan Gosling plays an advisor to George Clooney, who's a politician. And he says this to him after an affair with an intern comes out. You broke the only rule in politics. You want to be president, you can start a war, you can lie, you can cheat, you can bankrupt the country, but you can't fuck the interns. They'll get you for that. So I ask you, Jimmy, did Jon Jones break the one cardinal rule of evil bad boy fighters that fans can't forgive for? Not actually fighting.
Yes, in a certain way. This is going to follow him in a way other things won't dog him, right? The fact that he never fought Tom Aspinall will always be brought up every time you mention Jon Jones. He never fought Tom Aspinall. It's almost as though if he had done this after the Dominic Reyes fight and just went, you know what, I'm done, I'm out of here, we would have a higher opinion of him than going to heavyweight, being successful, but not fighting Tom Aspinall. It's almost as though heavyweight, to me, it adds a little bit to his legacy. Cyril Gane's good, not great. Stipe was past his prime. And the one fight that would have shown us really what he had at heavyweight, he didn't end up fighting. So I think his legacy alone at 205, we can call him the greatest of all time. You can easily make that argument. He wiped out, by any definition, 3 generations at 205, when 205 is a very, very good division historically in UFC history. Going up to heavyweight, got another title, added that, but him leaving, in a sense, detracted in a way that it didn't have to. GSP coming back, beating Bisping, never the guy before him, never the guy after him. He beat Bisping and then took off. And I went, well, him kind of coming in and sniping the one guy he thought he could beat at 85, does that add or yes, he won a title at 185. But the idea that he kind of went around, he kind of waited until the guys he thought he couldn't beat lost the title does detract a little bit. So there's always that little extra edge. Right now, sitting here on paper, he's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. But what did he add? I remember this quote about Michael Jordan. And it was, at his heart, Michael Jordan is the kind of guy who makes fun of the little kid on the bus. Yeah. He's a bully. He's a jerk. He just is. And, it may have helped him be a great basketball player. But this last year with Aspinall, he's been a prick. And it's just, it's very Jon Jones to keep Aspinall strung along for whatever it's been, a couple of years now, about this fight. And then go, I think I'm out of here. Denigrating Aspinall on the way out is a very, very Jon Jones thing to do. But he isn't where he is because he's a beloved figure in MMA. He's not one of those guys that we, in a sense, like Tom Brady will never be as beloved as Peyton Manning. The numbers all say he's the greatest of all time, but we don't love him, unless you're a Patriots fan, like you love a Peyton Manning or someone like that. Jon Jones will always be, in my opinion, the greatest of all time, but he's a jerk, and he wasn't a very likable guy as champion in either heavyweight or the light heavyweight divisions. He's got to live with both of those things. Ta-da. That's how I feel about it. That's how I see it. Like, all those things can be true.
Fellas, my connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah, I hear you just fine.
You're looking a little fuzzy on my end, but this is live TV right here, folks.
Yeah, fellas, I apologize. My connection is a little bit unstable. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I
hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Jed, I want to. I might have to re-enter the chat. Sorry, 2 secs.
All right.
I don't even know how this goes with Dennis having to.
Look. Let's assume we're live. Let's assume you and I are live.
People are kind of moving around.
Trust me, as a broadcaster, you always assume you're live.
Jed, can you hear me okay? Jimmy, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. You're back.
All right,
better.
Jed, break this.
Yeah. Jed, what are your thoughts? If you can hear me.
Apparently. Way to go, Jimmy. Way to step in and make the save here. Look, like a lot of what you said, I'm on board with there, Jimmy. I don't think heavyweight did anything for his legacy. I think it maybe long-term will have, because in 20 years, this sport cycles through fans so quickly. You know this.
Yeah.
Like in 20 years, people will just look back and be like, oh, 2-division champion. He is on the list of names of 2-division UFC champions, and he has the legacy as being the GOAT. And so it will then just be like, oh, they'll forget that he never really beat the top guy, right? Like he didn't win it. Right now, I do view it like the GSP win. I don't think it detracts. I think the Cyril Gane win is a good win in the same way GSP beating Bisping is a good win.
Yeah.
GSP was never really the middleweight champion. Like technically he was, more so frankly than Jon was heavyweight, because he did at least beat the just, middleweight champion. But for Jon, the Cyril Gane is a good win. The Stipe win is nonsense. That was a farce top to bottom from the jump. And so like he just leaves as, oh, this is a thing, right? But when we talk about GSP's greatness, nobody makes the GSP as GOAT case based on beating Michael Bisping. That is an afterthought, much like Jon's heavyweight run will be an afterthought. I do think for the next few years, though, he's going to catch it in the teeth a little bit. And frankly, justifiably so, right? Like, I do not criticize Jon, the businessman, the prize fighter, Jon Jones, because he did it right. He picked fights he knew he could win and get paid for. He minimized his risk, maximized his reward. That is good prize fighting. But, people didn't respect the end career of Floyd Mayweather doing this. And we don't have to really respect that from Jon either. Because, like, in hindsight, it looks, I'm not saying this is true, it does look a lot more like Jon waited to move to heavyweight until Francis left. Oh, Francis isn't there anymore? Guess I can fight Cyril Gane now. That seems fine. Gane just lost. He lost because he got tackled a bunch. I could probably go to heavyweight. Oh, I don't really want to fight Tom. You know what? I'll fight Stipe, who's 42 and hasn't fought in 4 years. I'll do that. And if Tom loses, I'd love to fight Alex. Be a really big fan of fighting Alex but you won't give me the Alex fight, I retire. The next few years, people will, to some extent, justifiably be like, hey man, you didn't want the work. You might have won it because I do think he could have beaten Tom Aspinall. And I think had he taken that fight, that would have added something real. I always hated his argument that it does nothing for me. Tom is the next flash in the pan. Maybe, but that would have been really a legitimization of his heavyweight win. And it's a win that could age well because if you look at Jon's resume, unimpeachable at light heavyweight. The one thing you can say, none of those wins aged all that well, right? Like he caught a lot of dudes at the beginning of his run, at the end of their careers. And then like, did the Anthony Smith win age well? Did the Dominic Reyes win? Like, no. Tom Aspinall is one of those wins you could look back and be like, oh shit, afterwards, Tom went to defend the belt 4 times. And now he's just not getting that. And so I think he left something on the table by walking away. But I also think maybe that was the right choice because, like, I think I was picking Tom if they fought. I wouldn't have bet my house on it, but, you know, avoid that risk because in 20 years, this won't matter. People will just call him the GOAT.
Well, another thing, too, is that, you know, when I was talking years ago with Steve Farhood, who's a boxing expert. We used to work together at PBC, and we were talking about, you know, train wrecks in boxing. And I said, who's the biggest train wreck you ever encountered? And without hesitation, he goes, Pernell Whitaker. And I went, Hall of Famer. I mean, unbelievable. One of the greatest boxers of all time. And, you know, he went and had drug issues later in life, you know, so this is all public. And he goes, Jimmy, he would work out and you'd smell it. It would come out of his skin, the coke and the like. And he goes, and he'd go in there and you know, guys couldn't touch him. You know, and I was like, what I always think, I never think, wow, that's amazing that I did that. I always think, God, what could he have done clean? I mean, he was, you know, waking out of a stupor and, you know, unifying the lightweight title. A similar thing with Jon Jones, where we missed gaps in his career when his behavior, you know, kept him out of fighting, or, you know, relinquished title, blah, 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 they had an interim, this and that. And I always think like, man, the years right there in his prime that we missed because he was being an idiot, God, we're never going to get that back. So there's almost this, God, even being the train wreck that we know he is, he was still amazing. And you always think, God, what could he have done if he hadn't had that? I know Brendan Schaub recently on some podcast said, dude, Jon Jones came in 20 minutes late, smashed, and, you know, he hinted it was over him, but all these other guys at Jackson Wing, and walked out. He did 6 rounds, went, all right, let's see you guys, smashed all of us and left. I remember similar stories about BJ Penn back in the day. The guy was just lazy, went in there, smoked everybody and left. But without that dedication, it cost BJ Penn professionally. Jon Jones did it anyway. And you go, Jesus, what could we have had if he had had his head screwed on straight, which I don't think he ever has. That's another question I have.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think it's pretty fair to call Jon the most talented fighter I've ever seen. Like, sure. just the most talented person who's ever stepped into the sport. Naturally understood fighting, and you know, this is a nitpick. I disliked his end of career because I thought he just moved away from being naturally gifted and tried to like fight smart, and that worked out. But like, did anyone enjoy watching him jab Anthony Smith and kind of win bad, like boring decisions? Was like in your early career, you just did spinning wild, cool shit and killed people. And you probably still could have been doing that forever. To the other side of that coin though, Jimmy, that I've always thought is like, yeah, it'd be great to talk about what Jon could have been. I'm not sure that works though. Like BJ is BJ, right? And you invoked him. Yeah. BJ was who he was. And that's sort of the same with Jon. Like, would a sensible Jon Jones be the same bad motherfucker who just absolutely ran through Shogun Rua, Lyoto Machida, Rampage Jackson? Like, I don't know. It's hard to get into, like, to parse out the mental, like the makeup of a guy who can be that talented and gifted, but be like, hey, could you also be a normal, rational adult? Because we've never seen it. Like, that's just not who Jon is. So it's hard to play that game.
John Densmore, who's the drummer for The Doors, was talking about Jim Morrison one time. He goes, so many times I thought, Jim, can't you be a regular guy and not walk around Hollywood, you know, on acid and booze? And he goes, but it wouldn't have been Jim. That guy who doesn't write Riders on the Storm, right? That guy doesn't write The End. Like, you know, and so John had this thing where he goes, you know, he had a contentious relationship with Jim Morrison, but he goes, yeah, God, why can't you just show up on time to rehearsal and we can get this album done? But you also wouldn't have written LA Woman. So I don't know. So there is a sense of maybe that need to take risks or that need to push his physical limits or kind of, be a wild man in real life. It helps his fight. You can't separate the two. You really can't at all.
It's not. That is the curse of genius. And
yeah,
like, I'm comfortable calling Jon Jones a fight genius.
Yes.
I don't think he's a life genius by any stretch, but like, there are very few fighters who could ever stand up to be like, to just implicitly understand fighting in the way Jon did.
Great stuff, Jed. And I apologize, everybody. I reset the internet. Hopefully it hangs in there.
We've been kicking ass, by the way.
You guys are better
guys
without me. You guys are better without me. Let me quickly go.
We've taken your show from you. It's now
so
ours.
whatever. Do you have anything to add? Anything to add? Go ahead.
Look at me. I am the captain now. Once again. Hey, just quickly, fellas. Dana White was at a boxing press conference and he was asked about this Jon Jones fight. I want to get your opinion on this. This is through the Mac Live, but there were a few of the boys. I think MMA Fighting was there as well. Jed, let's have a look what Dana had to say.
Did you know about the stuff that came out of Albuquerque last night?
I saw it today. When I saw it today, I said, "Oh, everybody's going to think this is why he retired. Maybe that is why he retired. Who the hell knows, man?" But yeah, I don't know. These are all questions you got to ask him. We had the fight done. You saw me talking about it very confidently that this fight was going to happen, and then he changed his mind.
Okay, so Jimmy, are we to really believe that Dana White knows nothing about this, and he's like, people are going to think he didn't fight because of this thing?
Well, my perspective really is he's less likely to retire because of that. Meaning, as I said, he's always been able to kind of refocus everybody on his fight coming up or the fight he just had whenever he's in trouble. So I think if he got in trouble, if he had gotten in trouble a week ago, he doesn't retire because he's like, oh crap, now I got to kind of have to turn things around and get people on my side or whatever. Now he doesn't have that option. So I don't believe it's I got in trouble, so I'm retiring. I think it's the other way around where he's more likely to come back because he got in trouble. So I don't think they're necessarily related. Also, the UFC is never going to suspend him. So it never would have like, oh, this is going to cost him 6 months. It's not going to cost him anything. The UFC is not going to suspend him. As we said about the legal consequences, he's probably not going to do any significant time. So it really doesn't derail him in any way. So I do believe they're unrelated. I do believe, honestly, that they're unrelated because getting in trouble just made him fight more. And the idea that, man, this was done. I've been thinking about this a lot today. If the UFC really believed he was going to retire, they would have moved on with the division, much like they did with Khabib, where, all right, we're going to try and get Khabib back, but, we're going to have Poirier fight for the title against so-and-so. We have to move the title along, right? It was ended up being Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler. We have to move the title along, but we're trying to get Khabib back. They would have done that. So I really believe that Dana believed this fight was going to happen. I do believe it somewhat blindsided him a bit. And, Jon Jones is a mercurial guy. You never know exactly what he's going to do. I think if Dana knew that he was going to retire, he would have handled this very, very differently because he kind of looks like, hey, this fight's done and it's not. I think he would have handled it very differently. I think it did surprise him.
It's a funny situation, Jed. Before you go, just give me your opinion on Dana White talking about the retirement a little bit more here.
That's the timeline of Jon accepted the fight, went to Thailand, came back, didn't want the fight. What happened?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that Thailand was the end of it. We were talking about it before that. But, yeah, the fight was done. We had the fight done a long time ago. So why he decided not to fight, you guys will have to ask him that.
All right, so according to Dana White, the fight was done. The fight was done a long time ago. It's got nothing to do with this criminal case. So why did Jon Jones decide to last minute pull out of this fight, in your opinion, Jed?
I don't think that I agree with Jimmy. I don't think the criminal case. The criminal thing was in February. Like it just popped up now, but like the initial incident was back in February. Like that would be odd for this to sort of break in the way it did. So I'm with him. I do not have any belief that this is part and parcel to that. I do disagree with Jimmy in a little bit in that I think the fight wasn't done because it didn't happen. If it was done, would have happened, right? Like that's Dana saying we made the offer and we met Jon's demands because based on the reporting out there, that seems at least pretty solid. Jon asked for X and the UFC agreed. And so if like, to me, that is Dana's interpretation of done. John gave us his demands. We agreed, but it's not done because they didn't book a venue. They didn't sign the contracts for the fight. It was like, here's what we want. Okay, we'll do it. We'll figure out a time. And they never did. And they never did because John was never going to fight Tom. I can't stress it. He was never, ever going to fight Tom. And Dana thought he would because he believed it for the same reasons Dana thought Habib would return from his retirement, because we played that game for 4 full months when Habib was like, my dad died, I'm retired. And Dana was like, nope, your father died. Nonsense. You're definitely not retired, even though that's the most like explicable retirement in the history of sports. Oh, my dad died. Nobody batted an eye when Michael Jordan was like, oh, his dad died, he's retiring. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. That's an emotionally traumatic event that happened.
Murdered. Let's make that abundantly clear. His father was
correct.
murdered. It wasn't like he battled cancer for 6 months. He was murdered. So yeah, I was in high school at that time. I remember distinctly. Yeah.
And so like, you might think, oh, maybe he'll come back at some point. Yeah. But Dana was like, no, he's coming back in 4 months because we got to have him fight Charles. Like, no, it's never fucking happening. Dana gets stubborn sometimes. We saw it all last year when he ridiculously asserted that Jon Jones was the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Like, he just stayed on that hill for 6 months when it was clearly stupid. And I think that's what happened here. They had some initial expectation, oh, that we can make this happen. And then he just held on to it because he didn't want to admit that this was a failed effort. Because at a baseline, even if I fundamentally disagree with some pieces of this, the broad story from yesterday after John retires is heading into 2025, the UFC, the promotion that, in Dana's words, puts on the fights the fans want to see. The 2 biggest fights this year, we've talked about it on this show, every other show. Brian Campbell has been beating this drum from the top of the mountain. The 2 biggest fights were Islam Makhachev, Ilia Topuria, and Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall. And neither are happening. And so Dana just didn't want to acknowledge that they failed. He wanted to hold on until he could not do so anymore. And he finally had to give it up yesterday.
But why did Jon Jones not take the fight? Why did he order the code red?
Why would he? Like, I don't blame John for not taking this fight. I think it adds to his legacy. But we were talking about this when you were not being on your own show.
Yeah, when we were taking over your show. Yeah.
Yeah, when you were not on your own show, like, in 10 years, it won't matter that he didn't take this fight. Right now, it matters. Right now, people are going to, give it to him for this, just rightfully so. But in 10 years, he can say he was a dual champion. He's already considered by many to be the greatest fighter of all time. And while it wouldn't be right for him to fight Tom Aspinall if he did get knocked out, for people to be like, actually, he's not the GOAT, that is how narratives sort of work in this sport. Why take the risk? Unless you were being paid such an absurd amount of money that it just doesn't matter, then why take it? And the UFC is not going to pay him. They're not going to pay him $100 million to fight Tom Aspinall. So why should he?
Jimmy, lay this out for us right now. I'm going to go back to this video if this does happen. If, like, let's say, we're going to talk about what's next. Let's say if Alex Pereira somehow fights Tom Aspinall slips in a banana peel, Alex Pereira is the champion, or whatever. Do you believe Jon Jones actually comes back and fights again?
I never believe a fight retirement. Ever. I don't think I've ever believed a fight. Khabib is the closest I got to going, yeah, he might.
Daniel Cormier as well, right?
Yeah, you just kind of go, look. But what nobody understands, if you haven't been in combat sports before, this is not the NFL where a team has to be interested in you. There aren't any roadblocks. It's, here's $15 million to do it one more time. Most of us, no matter what our job is, would go, okay, fine. I hate my job. Do it for one more week and you get $15 million. I'd go, okay, fine. It's this idea that he's always going to be in demand, right? And this early retirement just makes it bigger, right? That, oh God, what if we had gotten Aspinall versus Jon Jones? It would have to be a situation, much like Bisping GSP, where there's somebody I think I can beat. All the stars are lining up. Also, how long will Jon Jones be sitting at home making dumb decisions before he goes, man, I really want to get in there again? He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who can live without the attention that is generated by fighting. I'll believe it in a year. Until then, I totally believe you that if Tom Aspinall fights and loses, I don't think he comes back to fight Tom Aspinall because, once again, I would bet on Tom Aspinall. I wouldn't bet my house, which is a good point. I would never bet my house, but I'd bet on Tom Aspinall. Some other heavyweight beats him. He shows some kind of physical problem. His knee, which already went out on him and had to be reconstructed. His knee looks a lot worse. If there's some reason other than Tom Aspinall, I think he definitely comes back. But if Aspinall just keeps kicking ass and you go, you got to get over him, I don't think we see him. I don't.
Well, we're going to talk about what's next for Tom Aspinall, and people have brought up Francis Ngannou with Dana White. And surprise, surprise, Dana White doesn't really think or isn't that interested in bringing Francis Ngannou back. What did you guys make of this?
Over the years about Francis doesn't always mean what he says publicly. What he says behind the scenes are different than what he says publicly. I'm not a big fan. I would be shocked if Francis ever came back here on lots of different levels. I'm not a fan, and he doesn't always mean what he says publicly.
Big man not keen on Francis Ngannou coming back, but I mean, he's a promoter. Jed, sometimes promoters have to put the big fights together. We've seen Tito Ortiz wear things about him on his T-shirt on the weigh-in stage in the past. Dana White's got in the past a bunch of feuds. Why is it that this Francis Ngannou thing, why is it that he just cannot forgive, cannot move past this Francis Ngannou thing, especially during such a pivotal time in the division where him coming back could potentially mean huge things and big, big events for the UFC, considering where they're at right now with the division?
One, he's not really a promoter. Dana's just not a promoter. He hasn't been one in a long time. He doesn't promote shit. He puts on fights, but like he regularly trashes his own champions because he doesn't matter. Like the UFC, he is a businessman at this point in time. He's not out there pounding the pavement to get you excited about shit. He'll do a, if you don't know now, you know, Thursday or whatever, but he is a businessman, and Francis beat him in business, right? Like he didn't, ruin Dana's life, but Francis did a thing that they did not want. They did not want their heavyweight champion to leave the promotion with the belt. And he did. Not only did he do it, he got paid more money elsewhere by getting the things he wanted, by showing fighters that, hey, there are things out there that matter more than just the UFC letters and the belt and the paycheck. And so a lot of acrimony in there. This is not 2006 where they kind of need the business. Maybe they could, put things aside and do so. Like this fight is that bridge is never getting mended, and that's okay, right? Like Francis doesn't really want to come back either. He has been commenting similarly, and so like the biggest fight won't happen. Just like the biggest Francis John didn't happen. Francis Tom won't happen. John Tom, the UFC puts themselves into some boxes here. Dana's done that in this time, and it doesn't matter because they are winning the game outright because they own the sport.
It's an interesting situation in the division to see what's next. We've got a member here talking about, hey, let's do Eddie Hall versus Tom Aspinall. But I got to ask you, Jimmy, before we start talking about what's next. And by the way, big shout out to the members, Blood and Bear. I see you in the chat. DJ Serenity, I see you in the chat. We've got some other members in there. I think KZ's in there, some others. Make sure you join up as well so you can be in the chat and throw in your super chats as well. But Jimmy, we've got some options here for Tom Aspinall next. Of course, we've got the Almeidas. Of course, we've got the Cyril Ganes. But another name in there, and this was suggested by Sean Strickland recently, Alex Pereira. Alex versus Tom for the heavyweight belt. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But hey, we're in a situation that just doesn't make sense whatsoever. Is it time just to throw a big fight together and kick this thing off? I'll go with you first, Jimmy. What do you think?
I mean, people would be interested in Pereira versus Tom Aspinall because the unorthodox style of Pereira, he does have knockout power. The problem is, if fighting, the nuts and bolts of it, it's not Tom's power. It's powerful heavyweight, but I've seen powerful heavyweights before. I've seen one or two that move like Tom Aspinall. The guy moves like a 155-pounder. He's hard to find. He's hard to anticipate. He's hard to figure out because he has a very varied game. He's a gigantic heavyweight. He's very light on his feet. I think he wipes the floor with Pereira, and I'm a big fan of Pereira, unless Pereira catches some unorthodox shot. And also, to translate power from 185 to heavyweight, in modern MMA, it's virtually impossible. Sure, if anyone can do it, it's Alex Pereira. But the idea that an Alex Pereira shot just lays him out like he did at 205, he was able to knock out 205ers. Tom Aspinall can take a shot. He's a big heavyweight. And so this is one of those that is, it gets a lot of people excited because it's a big name. I don't think it's a great fight. But when I look at the heavyweight division, I look at Almeida, I look at Curtis Blades, I look at Volkov, and so many. I go, I think Tom runs through all these guys, to be honest with you. He's just that good. He's that big. He moves that well. So when you look at, hey, if he runs through everyone anyway, might as well put a big name that fans can get behind. That might be Pereira. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a good fight. I think Tom runs over. And that's, by the way, if Tom decides to stand with him, which I don't think he does. It's an easy takedown. It's an easy submission. So I think Tom runs over most of the heavyweight division, and that's the problem the UFC is going to have for the foreseeable future.
If Pereira is in your deck of cards, Jed, and a rematch with Ankalaev doesn't do much for fans, Ankalaev probably beats Pereira, I reckon, in the rematch again. Do you just throw him in there, throw him into heavyweight?
Buddy, I've been saying this since the first fight, or since the Pereira-Ank fight. Nobody gives a fuck about Magomed Ankalaev, Alex Pereira too. Like the two, probably the two best light heavyweights. You could throw another name in there possibly, but that's it. But no one cares. First fight wasn't interesting. If Alex loses, you're really burning your golden goose there because you're not it's just not going to elevate Ankh in a big way to get another win, especially if it's in a similar fashion to that previous one. Do it. There was no reason. As soon as he lost to Ankh, he needed to do what he did at middleweight. Oh, I lost to Izzy. Whatever. I'm just going to bump up. It is more meaningful to me to try and win a third belt and do something no one in history has ever done than to rematch Magomed Ankalaev. And I'm an Ank guy. I've been a long time supporter. That fight does nothing for Alex. Would it be merit-based, meritocratic? No, it would be ludicrous for Alex to get a heavyweight title shot. Doesn't matter, because right now the fundamental issue for the UFC is, hey, you all came into this year expecting Tom John. Dana told you over and over, this is done. This will happen. Oops, that's not happening. Here's Tom and Cyril Gane. People will riot. You cannot do that switch. That is, hey, did you want this big bowl of ice cream? How about a pile of horse shit instead? Would you like to eat this? It's also soft in consistency. Nobody fucking wants that. You have to do something that will, at least in comparison to what was lost, get people interested, get people excited.
The best second option.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm with Jimmy. I don't think that fight's probably that compelling or entertaining. Maybe. You never know. I would never discount Alex Pereira because he's done some truly insanely cool stuff. But you've got to give the people, you got to throw him a bone. And Cyril Gane ain't that bone. And I like Jailton Almeida. He's not it either. You got to do this. You have to go to Alex and be like, hey, man, you're walking around 245. Just hit the gym one extra day a week and let's do this. We don't need you at light heavyweight. Yuri can fight Ankalaev. That's good enough for us. This is the business move. And the heavyweight can sort itself out. Cyril Gane can fight Jailton Almeida Volkov can get in there and we can find another dude. But this set of circumstances, nobody at heavyweight demands a title fight right now. And you need something big. This is something big.
Quick shout out to new member Stephen. Welcome, number 12. Number 12, join in right now. Sign up. You can support the show, and also your super chat questions get pushed to the front. Jimmy, you could make the argument that Cyril Gane shat the bed badly when he fought Jon Jones, right? He showed up. You could tell the moment it was way too much for him. Isn't it funny? Now he's back in another position. He's been shooting movies, but surely that stays with a man. The moment with Jon Jones would have stayed with him as he was shooting his Netflix shows, as he was looking at himself in the mirror, as he was entering the gym, as he was doing whatever he was doing, out on a date with someone. It would be in the back of his mind. Are we discounting Cyril Gane here? Is there a chance that he's learned from the big fuck up that we saw against Jon Jones? Is there a chance he can come out a better version of himself? He's been working in the gym. He's been grappling. It looks like he's been taking things seriously. In that Jon Jones fight, the bright lights were too much for him. Do you think he can come back and sort of prove the doubters wrong if he does fight Tom Aspinall?
Everyone forgot about the Ngannou footlock debacle. Sits back for footlock, ends up on the bottom. That's his second screw up in a title fight with the big lights. The hardest label to shed in sports is choker, because you don't often get there. And it only takes 2 or 3 times for people to go, he's never going to get there, because you don't get there every season. You don't get there every year, right? You only get there maybe a couple times in your whole career. If you, as you said, shit the bed twice, not many people get a third title shot. If this were a deeper division, we would not be discussing Cyril Gane. Booyah. Right? If this were 155, he'd be Cowboy Cerrone. Like, all right, good fighter, but when he gets there, he can't do it. This idea that this division being a wasteland is the only reason we're talking about Cyril Gane at all, is that they don't have a ton of options. Does he overcome it? Maybe. But the problem, as I said, with being a choker is you can't shed the label in the minors. You can't shed the label in the regular season. You have to do it in the playoffs. So no matter how good you look, right, in the regular season, which is, Peyton Manning had this label for years, until he won a Super Bowl, won 2 of them, it stayed with him. So Cyril Gane can't kind of shed that label, beating Jailton Almeida, beating Volkov, beating anybody else. It won't shed that. Yeah, but in title fights, he just doesn't quite do it. He's got to win a title fight. And like I said, if we were in a deeper division, we wouldn't be talking about him. But you're going to have to recycle these names. And Curtis Blade's another one that just hangs around at the top, and they'll eventually get back to me. Well, other divisions, it doesn't work that way. Heavyweight right now is going to work that way for the foreseeable future.
Jed, who gives Aspinall a harder fight, Gane or Pereira?
Gane gives him a harder fight. I don't think either's that tough.
Because with Pereira, at least we've seen takedown defense, right? Like, we've actually seen improvement fight. The Uncle I fight was terrible, but we've seen improvements fight by fight. With Gane, every time it gets close to the ground, he just looks, and rightfully so, he has no experience, but he just looks completely lost and just like
he
can't
does.
handle it.
He does, but Alex is a middleweight, right? Like, he's not.
Yeah.
Cyril Gane has never once been able to fight at 185 pounds, and that's meaningful when you're fighting a dude like Tom Aspinall. So I would favor Gane. We have seen him have good moments. The John fight was a particular low, but like, this is also just a man who has wins at heavyweight, like meaningful, significant wins in this weight class. And that's the thing, like, the Gane win is a good John win. Like, that was a good win. It wasn't the best heavyweight win, but it was a good one, and we can credit him for that. And like, if we do ultimately get Gane versus Tom on the merits, that's at least that's a solid fight. It is just a fight that no one will care about. It would be a disservice to Gane at that point, because people will be so down on that matchup. You got to do something else.
Also, another thing that I don't think enough people talk about, Pereira got knocked out at middleweight, right? Is he knocked out? So a heavyweight putting leather on you? This idea that this is a guy, and obviously Israel Adesanya at that time in his career, lightning in a bottle at 185. But this idea, like, a 185er slept you. Tom cracks like a really good heavyweight. And the idea of taking those shots in the situation where he's going to have to take those shots because he has a very unorthodox style, I think he catches up to him.
Yeah, and Tom's just like, I'm shooting for the legs.
I
think for both of them, he's just like, I'm just shooting for the legs. I'm not standing with these guys longer than I have to. Jimmy, you're one of the best breakdown artists out there, and I'll go to you after that, Jed. But Francis Ngannou versus Tom Aspinall. Let's say we get the dream fight. Who comes out on top in your mind in that one?
The difficulty in this one. Now, they both had a lot of time off, but Ngannou has had PFL. He's fought once in MMA since signing with PFL. So he left the UFC, fought one time against Renan Ferreira, blew him out in the first round. So we haven't seen him get the reps that we thought he might get in PFL. So he's been off for a long time. He's one of those guys where I remember I was calling Stipe Miocic from the Fox desk when he fought Stipe the first time. And somebody said, man, Stipe's being really cautious in this 5th round. And I said, do you play that game Frogger? Do you remember the game Frogger in the 80s?
Yeah.
Okay, if you're a frog running across a freeway, there are no small cars. And everybody looks at me and they go, the guy hits hard when he's exhausted. He hits hard when Stipe understands that one shot and I can go out in this 5th round. He fought a very smart fight. There's a similar kind of thing with Ngannou. Ngannou doesn't do a lot of things really well. He's a big heavyweight, very, very strong. He has a good takedown defense, has a hell of a left hook, has a hell of a right hand. His leg kicks have vastly improved. That's about it. Any one of those, however, can put your lights out. And what I would like to see, I would favor Tom Aspinall against just about any heavyweight on earth. But this idea of a Tom Aspinall who's sitting there going, one of these and I'm out. I would love to see that tension in a Tom Aspinall fight. Tom can do more. His offense is more varied, but we saw Tyson effing Fury thinking, I got this guy, took a shot and went, holy God, he was looking up from the canvas. And so I'd like to see a sharp Tom Aspinall because Ngannou can light you up with anything. Would I favor Tom Aspinall? 100%. It would be the versatility of Tom Aspinall moving around, using his length, using his range, using his leg kicks, maybe throwing in a takedown, and Ngannou waiting for that big shot to open up because he can turn your lights off. That would be how the fight would work out tactically to me, but I would love to see Tom Aspinall not necessarily afraid, but sharp against somebody. I know if this guy lands, I'm in trouble. Yes, and I've faced that in a long time.
Jed?
I would favor Tom for different reasons. And it's a shame we'll never get this fight because this fight would be incredible, right? I'd favor Tom because Francis hasn't fought a lot in the last 3 years because he's 38 years old. Like those are just two really, like he spent a big chunk of time focused on boxing. Like he just hasn't competed in MMA that much. And so Tom is doing it. He is younger, probably faster, hits hard, not as hard as Jimmy said, got more tools. So I would favor Tom. That being said, here's the part about Tom Aspinall that is so fascinating to me because Jon wouldn't have tested this part of it, right? Like this isn't what Jon does. We haven't seen Tom fight. He's been collectively in the cage like 10 minutes in his UFC career. He kills people in 60 seconds. They just die. He touches them and they die. And so like, we don't know shit about him. We know what we've seen in training, what people say. We know like the super high end positives, but we don't know. I don't know how Tom Aspinall takes a shot because I've seen him hit like 3 times in his entire career. And, you know, getting a shot from some of these heavyweights, that ain't the same as getting shot by Francis Ngannou, right? I do know that I've seen Tom just go in with his chin up and be like, fuck it. I land first, he dies, I win. I don't know that math works against Francis. So like it is a fascinating matchup because Tom is still such an unknown despite being the best active heavyweight in the sport right now. It'd be really cool if we could get this fight, but you know, this is one that we'll never see.
Jed, who's the champion? Who's the heavyweight champion of the world for you?
Oh, Tom Aspinall. I love Francis and I for a very long time kept Francis as my number one. If you want to put Francis, I'm okay with that. He never lost it in the cage, and I respect that. Tom is the guy consistently fighting top 5, top 10 heavyweights, doing the work that you expect of a champion. And some of that is just by nature, but also Francis, and I don't blame him, went to box, did great in boxing, you know, but like he is focused on things outside of just being the best heavyweight in the world. Tom is doing the work of being the best heavyweight in the world. He's my champ.
Jimmy?
Oh, it's not even a question. It's Tom Aspinall to me. And Ngannou, like I said, powerful, talented, a little limited. What I love about Tom Aspinall, and I say this all the time, when you talk about which fighter's going to win in a certain fight, who can do more? Tom Aspinall will do almost everything. And I've been singing his praises since he got into the UFC. The first time I saw him, I went, oh my God, we're looking at the future of MMA right now. And I think the future is now. I think Tom Aspinall is the best heavyweight fighter in MMA. I would have favored him against Jon Jones. Once again, wouldn't have, not by a lot, but I would have favored him against Jon Jones. It's this idea that guy can do almost anything in a division where really limited guys get really far. When you have people like, you know, Derek Lewis, love Derek Lewis, in a lighter division, he never fights for a title. You know, it's this idea that the heavyweight division, you can get by without a whole lot. Tom has all of it. I think Tom's a champion in a lot of divisions, and I don't say that about a lot of heavyweights.
Got a crazy comment here about when do we strip Tom Aspinall? Give him a second, Blood and Bear. I think we got to give this guy. Yeah, we got to get this guy booked in. He'll be there International Fight Week. We've got to get this guy booked in. As we wrap up this whole conversation on Jon Jones, I want to go to both of you guys with one question. I'll go with you first, Jed. We've seen Dana White. He's been able to organize big fights. He's always come out on top when it comes to negotiations. He's always usually the guy that wins in these discussions. He's usually always the guy that gets the better deal or the better of these fighters. Did Dana White make a massive mistake with the way he negotiated this Jon Jones fight, in your opinion, by believing it was done, by going out there and telling media Jones is the greatest of all time, by basically just confirming over and over it was going to happen until now when Jones retired and the fight never even came together.
I don't think he made a mistake in the negotiation because the fight was never going to happen. I can't stress this enough. I've been saying it since the very beginning. The fight was never going to happen. He was just never going to fight Tom. He was if you listen to the words that he was telling you, he was never fighting this man. And so Dana couldn't have butchered that negotiation any more than Dana could have flown to the moon. Like it could not be done.
But do you just take the title then? You take the title, you go, hey, this guy's not the greatest heavyweight in the world. Tom Aspinall is the greatest heavyweight in the world. Like for Jon Jones and his ego and what he thinks about that, maybe that was the way to do it, Not letting him continue the whole thing.
That's still not going to get, Jon also said that, and I don't believe a lot of things Jon says directly, but when Jon's like, what the fuck do I care about being stripped? I've been stripped 3 times. It doesn't mean anything to me. That's right. Like, you can't threaten Jon Jones. You cannot cajole or force him. He has to want to do it, and he never wanted to. I think I give Dana some grace on this for a part of it. Like, right, like the Jon Tom fight is so big. You should wait. You shouldn't move on. Like, as quickly as they moved on, like, oh, Henry Cejudo says he's retired. Cool. Petr Yan's fighting somebody next week. I don't really give a shit. We're going to put the belt on him. Bye, Henry. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. You shouldn't do that with this fight because Jon Tom was so big. You should hope that maybe Jon says, yes, maybe you can make it happen. I do think this went on too long, right? Like, I think a few months ago, we could have been like, hey, let's just call it, right? Like, Jon, you can come back and fight whenever you want. If you call us up and say you want to, cool. We're going to take it off you. Tom's going to fight somebody in June because we want to do this. But the core premise of holding out a little bit, I think is fine. I just think he waited too long.
Yeah, we don't know what. Yeah, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I completely agree. I think the UFC did probably everything they could have. They held out as long as they could have reasonably. There's nothing else for Tom Aspinall. So this idea of, man, why didn't they make this other mega fight? Like, well, this isn't, once again, another person they moved on very quickly. They moved on from GSP very, very quickly. Why? 185 was loaded. Okay, fine. Let's get whomever it is, Yoel Romero, right? Bobby Knuckles, whomever it is, we can move on very easily. This is a situation where we have a mega fight and a desert at heavyweight. So they held on as long as they could before it became obvious. Now, when it was obvious to them, we're never going to know. I agree. I would like to have heard a month ago, hey, look, we got to move on from this thing. What information they had and when they had it, we will never know. But this is one of those where I don't see a big fault where I can go, Dana should have done this. I don't see that. He did everything he could for as long as he could have until it just completely collapsed underneath him. And when he knew that, I assume he knew when we knew. But he held that as long as he reasonably could have.
What would you have done differently in his position, Jimmy?
Dana often will not hesitate to go, fine, F you. And when he says, because they're scared. With Ngannou, remember, it was, he doesn't want to fight the guys in the world, the top guys in the world. That's why he's leaving. Well, F him. Never went there with Jon Jones. I don't think he didn't want to burn the bridge, or to Jed's point that doesn't really motivate Jon Jones. Only thing he could have done differently is move on faster, right? Is move on quicker. A month or two ago, moved on a little bit quicker. As far as the lead up, the negotiations, and the money they were offering, I heard the same thing Jed was hearing, that they were giving in money-wise. It was not a money issue. I don't see a whole lot at this point that Dana could have done differently other than give this up a month or two ago.
Last thing here before we wrap up, because we're almost out of time. And by the way, if you guys want to join up, you can be a Submission Radio member, support the channel. We are entering UFC 317 International Fight Week. No one cares about the fight week now. We're still focused on everything that's going on. And by the way, Tom Aspinall is going to be there during International Fight Week. So the whole thing is just going to be around Tom Aspinall, what happens next, Tom Aspinall's comments. But Jed, you didn't roast me, but you thought I was crazy when I was talking about this. Jed and Jimmy, have a look at Ilia Topuria at a press conference a couple of days back, already confirming his plans to move up to 170 and leave yet another division behind if Islam wins and he wins. Have a look at this.
Becomes the welterweight world champion, for sure I'm going to push for that shot also. And I will move to the welterweight division.
Guys, this guy just left. He just left featherweight. And now he's fighting for the lightweight title, something that is already sketchy. He should have fought someone to get that title shot, in my opinion. But whatever, Islam moved up. He's fighting Charles Oliveira. I'll go to you first, Jed. How utterly ridiculous would it be if the scenario actually does play out where he wins the lightweight belt, Islam wins the welterweight belt, and then somehow Ilia Topuria is able to just drop that lightweight belt, move up to 170 to fight Islam?
The only reason I'm not like fuming over this is I do not believe it will happen. I think the welterweight division has too much going on right now that I just don't think they would do it, because it would be obviously ludicrous. But this is the chickens coming home to roost. This is the inevitable endpoint of the UFC fucking this up so bad for so many years, because it's hard to blame Ilia for what he is doing, but the UFC pretty clearly has defined, what is aspirational for you. It shouldn't be to defend a belt a bunch. We don't care. Nobody cares about that. You got to win multiple. And if you can be the first to win 3, great. And Ilia internalized this. He is the evolution of Conor McGregor. Conor won the featherweight belt and never for 1 second considered defending it. Ilia did it because there was one clear-cut, obvious fight to make. But then he was like, fuck, I'm going to have to do the hard work of beating like lesser named dudes like Diego Lopez and Movsar Evloev and Aaron Pico time in and time out. And I don't get that big a kick from that, right? Like, I add to a legacy, but those chips stack up over time. That is a long-term growth investment, not I can win the lotto tomorrow if I just go up and knock out Charles Oliveira. He did that. And now let's say he wins on Saturday, which he's a big betting favorite to do so. We could talk about that if we want to. Let's say he does win. Okay, well, do you then fight at lightweight? Do you do the hard work of fighting Arman fucking Sarukian, a man who is naturally much bigger than you, who can tackle your ass and make you work? Maybe you can get the Patty fight and kind of shortcut there, but that's not even the gimme it once was. Do you say, F it, I can go fight Islam. It's obviously a massive fight. If I win, I'll retire. I'm the only fighter to ever win 3 belts in the UFC. That's incredible. And if I lose, people will bend over backwards to make the excuse of he chased greatness. He was just out here fighting a bigger man. And it's like, this is it, because the UFC didn't set boundaries. They didn't say, actually, bro, you can't. If you're going to go up to lightweight, you're going to have to earn a shot. They were like, okay, we want you to go up and immediately fight. In fact, as it was couched behind the scenes, he was the primary. He was the A side. Islam Makhachev, the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the sport, possibly the greatest lightweight of all time. The UFC was like, you're either going to fight another fucking featherweight, or maybe you can go fight for the welterweight belt. But those are your options, because they're just handing it to Ilia. He is great. He might end up being an all-time great, but we also may never fucking know, because he's not going to do the work that historically has been what establishes all-time greats. Jon Jones is the greatest of all time, not because he won the heavyweight belt, but because he defended his light heavyweight belt 9 fucking times, however many it was. Ilia's not trying to do that, and it hurts my soul.
Jimmy, has the UFC made a mistake by letting Ilia Topuria just move up here, get this title shot, and now potentially put themselves in a position where he's like, I'm cool. I just won't fight now after winning the lightweight belt until I get this welterweight shot. I mean, the guy's rich and doesn't need the money. He's got the legacy basically already. So he's got the power to just sit out until they once again give him what he wants.
Here's another thing that no one considers. I was on ESPN. We were doing an all-time list, right, of the greatest, Mount Rushmore, whatever. And my co-host said, how come all the guys you picked, GSP, Anderson Silva, Jon Jones, why are they all in the same era of the sport? And I go, because you won the title in your mid-20s. And you had 5, 6, 7 years to rack up title defenses. Guys now win it, generally speaking, much later in their careers. And so they're going, look, I got 2 years. I got to make all the money I can, and they hunt for big fights because, as you said, as Jed just said, beating GSP in numbers of title defenses, no one's ever going to do that because they don't win it till they're 32, 33 years old. And you got to start thinking about, okay, I got a couple of years to really make big money at the top. So that's another thing that is different than the era in which I fought, where guys won it much earlier, getting those 7, 8 title defenses. You could do that at 26, right? And it was a huge part of your legacy. Now it's like, okay, I got the title. How do I make the biggest money in the shortest amount of time possible? Because I'm freaking 33, 32. Now, Ilia's a little bit of an exception. I think he's 28 years old. So he's a little old, but still not old for the division. It's this idea that I agree that in setting this precedent of big money fights mean moving up in weight class, there's no incentive to overcome anybody's numbers in that weight class. You look for the big fights. So I think the UFC, I don't think they made a mistake at 55 necessarily. There weren't a lot of compelling fights for him at 45. There just weren't. This talk of 170 would be completely absurd for him to go up to 170 pounds. And I don't think he does well with those guys.
It's funny how Steven brings up what can the UFC do to stop this champion stuff. Pants is doing naughty stuff at flyweight. And I don't think Pants would ever get the opportunity to move up from the UFC. Like, they're not giving these guys opportunities. Like, Islam had to defend the title about 100 times before getting this welterweight thing. Just as we wrap up, though, Jed, who's winning between Charles and Ilia Topuria? And if you are saying Charles, what does that make his legacy if he's able to regain the belt against Ilia Topuria this coming weekend?
I haven't done my full deep dive in the fight. That's on my schedule for tomorrow. I have to favor Ilia in part just because everybody seems to think that this is a foregone conclusion. People I respect think that. I do have the sense that people are wildly discounting Charles Oliveira in a method that I am not comfortable with. And I've never been the biggest Charles Oliveira supporter. I like him, but I was never Charles is the GOAT or whatever when there was that brief time where people were maybe he's the lightweight GOAT. Dude, Charles is enormous. First of all, just a huge person. He has been winning fights against the best lightweights in the world for a very long time. Ilia has one win at lightweight. It was touch and go there for a minute, and it was not against a good one. Moving up is difficult, all those things. I am just genuinely fascinated by this fight. For now, I'll favor Topuria because he appears to have a touch of destiny about him. But it wouldn't shock me if Topuria cracked Charles fell to his back. Topuria's I'm not going into your guard. And we did that same thing we saw against Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, where you let him recover by not going to the floor with him. And then, oops, he hit me. And now he's on my back. And shit, this man is very good at strangling people. So I'm going to favor Ilia, but I think the fight's awesome.
Just before you go, Jimmy, the odds in America are minus 345 for Topuria and Oliveira plus 275. And for those watching in Australia, that's $1.20 for Ilia Topuria according to Sportsbet and $4.60 for Charles Oliveira. I'm looking at almost Kamaru Usman, Joaquin Buckley odds here. Jimmy Smith.
Absurd. I see why Ilia Topuria can crack. And the one thing about Charles, he's always been hittable. He just gets into the kind of fights where he takes some damage, comes back and does it. Number one, Ilia is a very tight boxer with real power. That's going to be a problem. Number two, Charles is getting older. And it's this idea that the shot you could take earlier on in your career. 5 years ago, I favor Charles Oliveira in this fight. Now, the idea of age and his hitability, those two things kind of catch up to him at the same time in this fight.
All right, fellas. That is it for us here. As we wrap up, Jed, MMA fighting, UFC 317 fight week. You guys have the watch party, obviously BTL. What else is coming up on the channel that people need to keep an eye on?
Dude, this whole summer is just nonstop shit. We've got a million things. There's that stupid Jake Paul fight's happening. So
when is that happening? What, this weekend?
I think that's Saturday, right?
What? I didn't even know this was happening. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's fighting Chavez Jr. Saturday, so we'll have some coverage of that because people seem to care. But yeah, I mean, this is International Fight Week. Hall of Fame Thursday. Jose Young's gonna be there. Normal shit. I'll probably be back on the show if you'll have me. Hopefully I'll have a voice then. Otherwise, been a pleasure, boys.
Thanks, Jed. I appreciate you. And Jose Youngs as well. I think he was a fanatic. He's got a bunch of great content too. So jump on the YouTube there and check that out. Killing it in the game. What about you, Jimmy? What's coming up UFC 317 Fight Week? Are you commentating this coming weekend as well?
No, I am doing Pro Box TV in 2 weeks, and then I'm going to South Africa for PFL in about a month. So those are my things coming up. So I'm doing a bunch of boxing talk over on Pro Box TV, but I'll be breaking everything down on my YouTube channel for this weekend. So check me out there if you want to see it. Jimmy Smith, easy to find.
Love it, man. UFC 317 preview show with Luke Thomas now out on the Submission Radio channel. Have a special chat with Beneil Dariush dropping today. A bunch of fun lives and stuff planned. So keep an eye open for it, gentlemen. Thank you so much. This has been one of my favorite episodes thus far. Sorry for disappearing.
Because you missed half of it. You weren't here for a big chunk of it.
They're going to be like, why do you have that guy on this show? Whatever.
Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here on Submission Radio.